Welcome to What the World Needs Now with hosts Tom Whisinnand and Josh Monroe. We hope you're able to leave feeling encouraged and ready for another day of changing lives in the field of education as we speak with inspirational teachers from across the nation and the world about what keeps their spark lit.
In this episode, Dr. Catherine Zeisner, an educational leadership professor from Gonzaga University, shares her passion about the importance of supporting all learners from students to teachers to administrators. Without any further ado, Dr. Catherine Zeisner.
So you know that I am Catherine Zeisner. I'm from London, Ontario, Canada. I am a teacher for 20 plus years. I moved into administration and was a school principal for a long time and was very lucky to obtain a doctorate of education and got some adjunct university jobs at nighttime, which I absolutely loved. And it reminded me of the fact that I really enjoyed and missed teaching. So then obtained a full-time higher education job teaching here at Gonzaga University in Spokane, Washington in their School of Education, but mostly in their Department of Educational Leadership and Administration, teaching their master's and doctoral students.
Wow, that's intense.
I know. I've had like 12 lives.
And how's it been? Those are some transitions that you've had.
So it's interesting because I didn't even teach right away at first. I actually was in insurance for a long time as a claims adjuster. Remember, when you crash your car or your house gets damaged? I worked in sort of that customer service for about 9 years first, which I'm happy I did. I don't think I was mature enough to move into a classroom as a mid-20s-year-old person. And being in insurance, and especially with the tragedies that I support people through, got me to learn how to be patient and kind and communicate and negotiate and to be a good customer service person. So that when I moved into teaching, I wasn't afraid of talking to parents. I wasn't afraid of negotiating. And then it was an easy transition into administration. But I taught for about 7 years, and I actually changed jobs every single year. So I started off as a French teacher, because in Canada, if you wanted a job when I started, there weren't a lot of jobs, but because I had my French qualifications, I got a French job, and then I got a phys ed job because I'm a phys ed graduate. And then they moved me into special education, which got me really involved in ADHD program director, which then got me into a vice principalship, which then got me into a learning supervisor job, providing leadership development for a district, which then got me into a principalship. I've just enjoyed being able to just grow every single year and support more and more people. And then when I got the doctorate, what was nice was I got to teach 800 students. In Canada, you go to university and then you go to teachers college for 2 years. And it was a class of 800 students. And so I had this beautiful amphitheater of 800 beautiful people who wanted to be teachers. And I thought, this is who I want to be influencing before they go in the classroom. So as a principal, I could influence the 50, 60, 70, 80 teachers I had in the building, but to have 800 raw, ready people, I just knew that I wanted an opportunity to do that. I wanted to tell the truth for people before they got into the classroom. And it was kind of neat because they didn't believe me. I would come in, I was actually a principal during the day, that I would drive to the university at night and teach sort of 4 to 9. And I would say, you will not believe what happened at school today. And they were like, no, that doesn't happen. And then for their second semester, they were interns at schools. And then they'd come back for their third semester and go, oh my God, you were right. And so then we could have even deeper conversations. And so I just felt I was finally making a difference on a bigger scale. And now here at Gonzaga, now I'm with principals, district leaders, and superintendents focusing on system-wide change. And I'm really excited about that because I want people to be looking at things systemically, because that's, as we've talked many times, and as we've even seen on some of the social media, it needs to be done on a very large scale. We know that John Hattie tells us that teachers are the biggest influence on student success, but we also know that district leaders need to understand we need to support teachers so they can provide for student success. So it's kind of like, I kind of helixed a little bit. I went forward and then not backwards, but to the place where I really wanted to be.
That's an incredible journey. You've been all over the place.
Yeah, and now I'm in the States. And I'm happy about that. And as we talked earlier, I love the international perspective. I love the Australian piece that I've had. I've loved I got my teaching degree at the University of Maine, but I got my doctorate in Canada and I got my master's in Australia. I love the fact that we're pulling pieces from all over the world, Finnish education, etc., because no one country has the right answer. No one district has the right answer. No one teacher has the right answer. It really is about a global community. So how can we use all of these wonderful positive ideas and try them? They may not work for your group. They may not work for your students. They may not work for you, but there are some things that are really going to enhance learning around the world.
Yeah, and I love that you're talking about bringing everybody together with all of that. And that's what we need. I mean, that's what the world needs now.
That's correct. Kindness, I was thinking about the title of your podcast. And I'm like, I wonder if it's just as simple as love, kindness, and listening. And I know that sounds kind of cliche, but at this time, I think that's my answer. I wouldn't have said that a couple years ago, but we're now 9, 10, other countries are in this pandemic more than 12 months. China's been in it since last November. And love is what's gotten a lot of people through. Kindness is what's saving people. And stopping and listening to each other to discover best practices, I think is what's going to make the biggest difference.
I think that's so true. I was thinking this morning about, as humans, sometimes maybe we overcomplicate things. Maybe things can be easy, but we let things, our own desires and our own wants get in the way of what is the best answer or the best solution to a problem for more than me. And I think that as we move forward, I hope that we can find maybe a simpler answer to some of these problems that we have made very, very complex. And I don't mean to minimize anybody's feelings or anybody's experiences by any means, right? But I think listening is huge. And I think as educators, I teach 4th grade elementary, I think that's really huge, that I stop and listen and make the children that I work with feel valued. And I would imagine, as a practitioner who works with adults, letting them speak and be heard is as important as listening to a young child.
And it's free. Love, kindness, and listening is free. And it's also about giving. And so if we can take a step back and say, okay, I don't need to take at this point. I could be giving something that's free. And if we also can say to ourselves, that is going to make it, I love, on the bottom of my email, I have, to the world, you might be one person, but to one person, you might be the world. And I love that TikTok has given me this opportunity to meet kids that I taught 20, 25 years ago, that you have no idea the difference you made in their life because of something ridiculous, silly, funny that you did that has impacted them, whether it was something positive that you said or you stood up for them. And you're like, wow, that was not taught at Teachers College. That was not bought at Scholar's Choice or at some sort of teacher store. That's sort of who you are as a person. So to me, if we can all just take a step back, as you say, and think, okay, what can I be giving? I don't have any money to give people, but I can give them my time, my energy, my respect, my love, my kindness, and my listening ears. And you could teach that to people and then not expect anything in return. We're still in this society where instant gratification, I'm going to give something for you and want something back. If we can say you may not get something back ever, and that's okay, because giving is better than receiving, and you may receive something lovely down the line. But that not expecting that, I think, is kind of where we need to be right now.
And you hit on your TikTok. So I want to go down that road, because you got a huge following and you're doing some amazing things. I think that's what draws me to you as an administrator. You're preaching to us. You're helping us be better teachers. So what took you down that path? What got you into TikTok?
So I was here on Gonzaga campus on March 13th when they shut the world down. But I live on campus and have a job called faculty in residence, where I live in a residence with 90 students and support them academically and emotionally. They all left, but I still live in the building because I have an apartment here. And after about a month of loving it and doing my laundry on my own and running around, you know, my shorts and stuff, I got very lonely. But my entire life has always been ensuring that I'm kind of one step ahead of everything that's going on, especially when it comes to social media, so that I can talk what the students are talking. So when Snapchat came out, I made sure I got Snapchat so I understood what Snapchat streaks were. So I started to see on my other social media these TikToks coming up. So I thought, oh my goodness, when the students come back in the fall, I gotta be able to talk TikTok. So I downloaded the app. For a couple days, I watched some of the videos. I learned some of the tricks and I made a video, and I enjoyed it because it reminded me of iMovie. I love iMovie. There's a lot of the same features and elements. And for my classes, I often make a movie trailer to announce the course, and it makes it kind of fun. And then I decided I'm going to learn all the features. So I'm going to learn how to duet. I'm going to learn how to do music. And a funny one that I duetted went a little crazy. I think I got 15,000 views, and it was kind of exciting. And my friends pulled me aside and they said, we think you're starting to lose it. You're kind of embarrassing yourself. You're a professional. You're a principal. You're a professor. You need to be telling professional stories to help people. And I was kind of insulted. I'm like, what? I'm so funny. And they're like, no, tell your funny stories too. But people usually are pretty inspired by some of the things you've been through, because I'm a cancer survivor and I've run marathons and I've overcome a lot of stuff. And so I took that to heart and I made one sort of post that was kind of inspirational, and it resonated with a lot of people. And my friends were like, see, we told you. And so I just decided that every day I would tell another story. And then I started to talk about the perspectives of being a principal. And that it just went crazy from that, Josh, from me asking people to see principals as people instead of positions, from me telling stories about kangaroos running through the school. It just started to get this very big gathering. And then in the summer, the big change for me was in the summer. I decided to do this whole A to Zeisner project, where every day I chose a letter of the alphabet, because I was doing lives every night. And I had people from all over the world joining, and we were confused about some of the vocabulary people were using, even though we were talking about the same thing. And I thought, I'm going to write a book about educational world vocabulary so that when someone says supply teacher or occasional teacher or day teacher, we all know what that means. And I got to the letter V, and I did a post called, and so every, A was for attitude, and B was for best, and C was for capacity, and whatever. And people were adding their words. But I got to V, and I made a post called vulnerability, that in education, I think people need to be vulnerable. And I posted 6 or 7 things about myself that people may not believe. But I wanted to put it out there, and it went nuts. So then my friend said, see, you can be funny, you can be poignant and smart, but we like it when you're vulnerable, so that people then themselves in teaching, who right now are overwhelmed and worried about the fall, can start to see that it's going to be okay. And so I sort of now have made these sort of 3 kinds of posts. I try and do a funny one. I try and do one that's sort of educational. I talk about research. I share best books and best practices and ideas. And then every once in a while, I'll do a little bit of a vulnerable post about being a woman or being a leader or, being lonely. And it's just, every day it just continues to grow. And I have not only educators, but a lot of people in the medical field who feel very akin to us. A lot of young people who want to aspire into education or to higher ed. And that makes me really, really happy. And so while, as you know, it's exhausting and somewhat stressful, because you and I both put posts out there that have not necessarily hit the way they're supposed to, because you have 60 seconds to try and capture people's attentions and explain something that's usually pretty complex. I've never deleted anything or removed anything other than one post about my dog, but because it was kind of dumb. I've just tried to be real. And not, I haven't met a lot of real people recently. And I thought, well, then I'm going to be the real person. And I've enjoyed it. I really enjoyed meeting the people, the comments, the sharing, the truth that's been told, the debates that have gone back and forth, which I've really enjoyed. And then the sharing. Like I've probably learned as much as I've tried to share. And I'm a teacher. I love to learn. I'm a lifelong learner. So it's been really positive.
In my fourth grade classroom, social emotional learning, social emotional intelligence, all of that's really, really important. You touched on it a little bit when we were talking about the relationship between educational leaders and those that they serve or that work with them. I'm curious what you see as far as social emotional learning or instruction for the leaders so that they can make sure that the teachers' needs are met, or district level leadership, so they can make sure that their principals' social and emotional needs are being met while they're piling all of the assessments and all of the COVID tracing and everything that's going on in their worlds.
Yeah.
What does that look like in your role as a professor?
Yeah, so that social emotional learning, that was going to be my answer to the question, what's the world need more of, or what's the world need next? I just wrote an article for a journal where the US has put a lot of money into social emotional learning recently, millions. And there is millions of initiatives that people are implementing in their classrooms, all kinds of great programs. But teachers still feel pressured with curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
So I and my writing partner proposed that there are other people in the school who can be building upon students' social emotional learning skills in another environment. And we've decided it's the athletic coach. Outside of the classroom, in a different kind of arena. We're still talking about goal setting, dealing with failure, how to be a leader. So social emotional learning is huge to me. When it comes to leaders, I like to use the term emotional intelligence. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What emotional intelligence do you have about managing your own emotions, managing others' emotions, and most importantly, resiliency? There are thousands of adversities that school leaders have to overcome on a daily basis, from time crunches, financial crunches, crises and tragedies in schools. But are you able to take a look at your emotional intelligence to know that you can handle that situation? If you can't, are you vulnerable enough to ask for help? Does your district have what we call a TERT team, a traumatic events response team, so that you can support your people, but the traumatic events response team comes in and does some of the daily stuff for you. So you have to be available where you need to be, which is with the people. So there's all kinds of things I wish we could propose, but the TERT team is a big one that I've been talking about a lot in the States. And there's no district that I have found that has these groups of people who are trained for tragedies to come into a school to support students and teachers if someone's died, if there's been a horrible environmental tragedy, and allow the administrative team to support the people. But as you say, it's got to come from the top. It's got to be built into leadership development courses. And if you look at principal certification programs are all about the NELPs, the National Educator Leadership things. If you read through that, I don't see too much stuff in there about emotional intelligence, managing emotions, supporting others through resiliency. So I'm very lucky that starting in this summer, I'm going to be doing the principal certification program here at Gonzaga University. And I'm going to do it following the required certification pieces. I am building an emotional intelligence piece into the course, which I want to then share with other people. Because to me, it's an entire 3 days on its own, as opposed to 3 days on this standard, this leadership standard, and this leadership standard. The big thing is the fact that we have to allow leaders to be more honest. So if you ask your principal, you say, hey, have you ever heard of the imposter syndrome? She'll say, yeah, I have. Mm-hmm. We need to stop that. We need to stop putting people in positions where they have that feeling that they're not good enough. They have to pretend. They can't be themselves and be authentic. That they have to act because all of those things contribute to exhaustion, which contributes to problems, creating problems, which contributes to stress, which contributes to being not well. So we need to put people in these positions more emotionally ready and prepared for what they're going to see, which is a lot of very, very difficult things. But until our principal certification programs incorporate it and we talk about it and we get people to admit it, it's going to be really hard for us to train people on that. So in Canada, we use the EQ 360, sort of this self-assessment where you assess yourself and you get your followers to assess you and your manager to assess you, and then all the data is sent to you and you can look at where you've plotted yourself and where others see you and where your manager sees you, and we have these deep conversations about ourselves, and you do it 2 or 3 times. A lot of the questions at the principal's interviews are along the lines of emotional intelligence. We spend a lot of time in a formal mentorship program. We have informal breakfast programs. You're constantly talking about how are you feeling, what happened. We also use protocols a lot. So we go and sit in a group where there's 6 or 7 people, and today is my day. I share a situation that's happening. I then stop talking. The group then has 10 minutes to give me responses. There's 10 minutes for problem solving. There's 10 minutes for debating. And I walk away feeling heard, supported, and most importantly, with solutions to something that's very personal to me. Mm-hmm. Well, unless we have these professional learning communities, these formal and informal mentorship programs, that's my dog snoring, and these opportunities where people can be vulnerable, you're going to have people stressed out, making bad decisions, and fake.
Right.
And that worries me. As someone who was put in those situations and tried to fake it for a long time, and then just decided it's too exhausting and you make bad decisions, and then I sort of got very vulnerable with my professional learning community, and things really changed for me. It just took me too long. I just wish we could get people as they're entering leadership positions. That's the other thing. What are sort of the leadership opportunities people have had before they've gone into administration? I don't want people going from the classroom to the office. There needs to be a coaching position in there. There needs to be some sort of district level position. There's some committee work, opportunities where they're in charge, they're trying to get consensus, where they're problem solving, where they're negotiating, long before you're sitting in an office dealing with a horrible tragedy with a family, where you really do not have the capabilities to do that. So, just my thoughts.
They're awesome.
I'm a little passionate about educational leadership.
You are, and it's awesome, because that's
just a little bit.
That's what we need in education, though. We need not just teachers that are passionate and caring and loving and empathetic. We need administrators. We need superintendents. And I think that I can speak for Tom when I say we're blessed to work in a district that does a lot of what you're talking about.
That's important to me, is that leadership never forgets what it was like to be a teacher. And often I hear superintendents or district leaders only taught for a millisecond. And while I appreciate anyone who wants to go into leadership, if you're going to lead a school district, I need you to have had quite a large birth of educational experiences so you can relate to the people you're leading.
Dr. Zeisner, you would love our superintendent.
Yeah.
He's still a guy that comes into the classroom. Before COVID, he was in my classroom at least once a year. And this is a big school district. I mean, we have 25,000 kids that we serve.
Yeah.
And he's in my classroom once a year. I mean, he's traveling, he's talking to people, he's in our meetings. He's pretty much everything that you're explaining you want. He is a great,
doing it right.
Great
awesome.
guy.
Good. Then we want to celebrate that. We want to find a good model, and we want to share that model. Just like we look at your models that you're sharing, and we want people to take a look at it and take pieces that work for them. It's about finding a good model. Model is in a noun, right? Not a verb, and having an opportunity for people to talk about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You are so passionate about education, and I love it. I could sit here and listen to you all night. I'm wondering, has there ever been a time where your passion has waned, or you've really thought, what am I doing? Why did I get into this? One, has there ever been that time? And two, what advice do you have if somebody that's listening or watching on YouTube is going through that themselves? How do you get out of that lull?
So yes, in fact, I've experienced it many times. And I was thinking about this today. I've experienced it on a day. I've experienced it where I've had a crappy week. I've experienced where I've had a crappy month, and I experienced where I had a crappy year. In fact, when I first started teaching, so way back in the early 2000, I guess, on the third day I quit. I went home. My husband, who's a teacher, and his best friend, who were a teacher, I walked in, I went, I'm not going to do this. Some kid had effed me off during the day. I had no classroom. I was on a cart. It was a disaster. And a fight broke out, and I went home and I went, well, I'm not going to do this. I just gave up this gazillion-dollar a year job in Toronto to go and be a French teacher. What kind of nut bar does that? And they sat me down and they're like, no, you were made for this. Go back there, don't take that crap, and you call the office. And they talked me back into it. So number one, you need very supportive friends and colleagues. I've said that. That's my dissertation about the fact that you need to be able to reach out and tell people. The second thing is you need to stay physically active. You have to have serotonin. You have to have endorphins going through your body. While there are many days where you want to come home and lie on the couch and have a good cry and eat ice cream and a cheesecake, I totally get it. But more importantly, the day that you go out and have a walk, or you take your dog out, or you go for a swim, or you do something active, it also clears the mind and gets you happier and refreshed. And the last thing is you do need to have a positive disposition. You do need to be a person who is a glass half full person. The sun's going to come up tomorrow. My feet are on the ground. I'm going to do a lot. So to me, having some really great friends to talk to, being physically active, and having a positive disposition will get you through a lot of things. The next sort of chunk is this idea of relationships with your administrator. You do need to have some sort of relationship with people who are leading you. You need to be able to talk about what's working for you, what's not working for you, what your needs are, what are some problems with students and families that you want help with. Not that you're going to dump to anybody, but that you're willing to learn and support from. And the last one is that you need to maintain being a lifelong learner. You can't just sit here and go, I don't like this anymore. Okay, well, what are you going to do about it with regards to the fact that your classroom management isn't working, so I need to do some classroom management work. I don't like this curriculum, so I need to find some other resources. So you do have to be a lifelong learner. And you can ask these questions in interviews of teachers. You can ask these questions of yourself. I always admire people who continue to want to learn. And I'm not just saying go and get a doctorate, because that's not for everybody. But Saturday PD, a book club, I hate to say it, you could just take all of Josh's TikToks and put them together, and that's an entire first year teacher training program. Here's a POV of a problem if you have with a student. Here's a strategy you might want to try. Mm-hmm. And that's why I like reading the comments on Josh's posts, because there's lots of comments about this would work for me, this wouldn't work for me, this. What about if this child has anxiety? What about if it's a gender situation? That's the kind of PD that we need today. 1 minute, let's talk about it. Will it work for me? I tried it, it didn't work, but I want to try the next one that he showed me. So this idea of being physical, having friends, and being positive, making sure that you have great relationships with people who you admire and role models and your leaders, and ensuring that you're a lifelong learner and that what you're sitting in, you're not satisfied with. And when I think of the multiple times where I've beaten myself up, when I've been so disappointed, when I've made a horrible decision and gone home, those are the things that got me through. I also had, and this is the best advice I give to a lot of people, I use the 24-hour rule. I'm allowed to be upset, but only for 24 hours. I made a horrible decision once with regards to having to suspend a student. I was so upset by it. I looked at my watch, it said 3:35, it was a Friday afternoon, and by 3:35 on Saturday, no more upset about it. So being very intentional that you're giving yourself permission to grieve, to be upset, but then it's time to move on and move forward. So I often use the 24-hour rule. That was taught to me by a principal because I had screwed up, and she said, I know you're upset, but you're not allowed to be upset after 24 hours. And it's really worked for me. So there is a sort of a mindfulness. I go back to social emotional learning. You have to have some connections with your own emotions, and recognize it's okay, but then there's something you got to do about it.
Tom, is that what you call the menopause? What was it?
Meta moment, right? Where
Meta moment.
Not
you stop, you kind of regroup and just really analyze your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, take stock of it all, and then, like you said, figure it out. Be however you want to be. Honor your feelings. You have to honor your feelings, but eventually you move on, and I think that's beautiful.
maybe edit out that moment that I said menopause. I meant meta moment is what I meant.
Yeah. But if you're upset, if you have a friend to talk to and you do something physically active and you have a positive mindset that this isn't going to kill you. My favorite saying is you've survived 100% of your worst days so far. Right? So that helps. Having those sort of really great mental thought strategies will help you get through the 24 hours easier.
Yeah.
I like that you touch on the being active part, because I think, at least for me, that's something that COVID has taught me. I did not realize how much I relied on playing basketball, especially. That's something that I took for granted, to remain inspired, to remain happy, to not just be a good teacher, but to be a good husband, a good father. That's something that we got to keep in mind too. We got to stay active, because it is easy to wallow in pity. But we need those moments where you strap up your boots, you get out, you take a walk, you get your mind cleared, and you get ready for the next day.
That's why I'm really glad I rescued a dog at the end of August from the Spokane Humane Society. And, I live here by myself in a space, not much of a yard for him to run in. We have to have intentional 5 walks a day. I'm down 46 pounds since March, maybe April 1st or something. So I did really well, and then the dog has really put me over the edge. But it's really nice to have a purpose to get out of bed, to get out and get some sun and to get some air. Even when it's cold out, you still feel amazing when you come back. And I'm so pleased that a dog did that for me, because I'm a cat person, and this house hippo that's sitting here, it's just been the greatest thing ever. But I used to be a really physically active person, but I have Crohn's disease, so it kills my arthritis, kills me and stuff. But it's amazing how if you're active, you feel better even with arthritis. And my whole dissertation was on adversity and how leaders overcome adversity, and physical activity is one of them. And I'm like I said, you don't have to run a marathon. Yoga, swimming, walking, all of those things contribute to health. And I often teach people about the triangle. What have you done today that have supported your mental, emotional, and physical health? Because if you haven't done one of those three things, you're not going to sleep well. I often will speak to schools and to teachers and to groups and say, whatever you do, reflect on something you did today to grow your physical health, support your mental health, like journaling, meditation, or whatever, and your emotional health, talking to a friend, seeking counseling if you need it. All 3 of those things contribute to better sleep, which reduces stress, which makes you better tomorrow.
I like that. I'm going to start using that.
Yeah, with your kids.
Mental, social, and physical. Because we always do a reflection at the end of the day that they send to their grown-ups. But that's not something that I've had them think about, is what's something that you've done for your mental, physical, and social health. That's awesome.
Emotional health. Because, if we're going to talk about social emotional learning,
that's right.
What do you do today to grow your emotional intelligence? And your mental is obviously anything having to do with thinking and problem solving. That's kind of easy at school. And even the physical aspect's easy if you have recess and phys ed and those outdoor activities. But it's that emotional health. What did I do today to ensure that my emotions are in check, that I was able to manage myself better? Those are the critical ones.
Dr. Zeisner, I think this has been an absolute joy to touch base and learn. Oh my gosh, just learn as much as I have from you in the last little bit. you kind of touched on it, what the world needs now, but do you have any other final zingers, any other final thoughts that you want to bless us with before we kind of go off air here?
Well, my big thing is I need COVID over. To get people back learning together in a, maybe not even the way we used to learn before, but certainly in school environments with teachers and students working together in a much more successful way. So I need this, however we're going to get rid of COVID, let's get rid of that. The second thing is I want us to think about standardized testing. I want us to think about teacher appraisals. I want us to think about leadership differently moving forward. Are those things contributing to student success? And if they're not, then why are we doing them? And I realize a lot of it is about money generation. A lot of it is about prestige, but that has nothing to do with student success. So what the world needs now is some sort of direction about how all of our respect and energy can go towards student success. No matter where you go to school, what country, what kind of school. Because I don't know about you, but when people go home and they can't share with their grown-ups something that they did that made them feel successful, whether they were a better friend, that they won a race, that they did well on an assessment, that really bothers me. Because we need people to be able to feel successful in the most, whether they made a friend, they saved a friend, that they put their hand up and made an answer, whatever it is, that we need some way for people to feel more successful. Same with teachers. So whatever we can do to take things off people's plates to make people more successful is really going to make me happier.
Yeah.
I love that. You're always thinking about the teachers, and that's what I love about you.
But John Hattie tells us, his 40 years of research tell us, you teachers have the biggest impact on student success. So all of our time and energy needs to go towards you because you are making the biggest difference. Invisible Learning, watch it, read it. It's the best book out there. Visible Learning by John Hattie. It's right here. Yeah, it's the best book ever written. It's really kind of researchy, but essentially the 150,000 pages say teachers make the biggest difference.
Love it. Well, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much for being with us. This was a joy. I know I learned a lot and had a lot of fun. Tom and I, we always record on Tuesdays, and it really gets us pumped and amped for the rest of the week. So,
ladies and gentlemen, that's our show. Thanks for tuning in this week. Hopefully you're ready for another week of changing lives. We're so thankful and appreciative that you took time to listen to our guest, Dr. Catherine Zeisner.
We hope that as you head out, you remember that you're the biggest factor that plays into student success. Your love, your passion, your empathy, your dedication is exactly what the world needs now. Thank you so much for all that you do. Have a good one.